Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me for the prayerful pause with the pastor. Time to think of some things greater than ourselves. And it is the 4th of July holiday season. It's actually I'm recording this on Monday, July 5th, the day of observance for the 4th of July for the federal holiday, Monday following the holiday. And I've been thinking a lot about 4th of July and its significance as it marks the birth of our nation. As I have said in other places, in sermons and so forth, it's a tricky time for those of us who, I think, want to be aware and sensitive of everyone in the nation and not just people with beige skin who look like me. The things that we thought were available to everyone, we've learned over time were not. The dream that we thought was being fulfilled was not. And yet it's still worth having the dream, I believe, and just taking another moment to recommit to it. So one of my friends, who is a woman of color, was wearing a great t-shirt not long ago, and if you're watching, you will know who you were. And it had the following on it, and I ended up writing to the company, and I got this sticker which says the same thing that was on her t-shirt, and I will probably get a shirt to go with it too. But I wanted to share it with you because we need to form a more perfect union. And I think that we forget that this is an experiment. We are an experiment in human history, and none of us wants to think of ourselves as guinea pigs, like we're part of the experiment, but we are. We're part of this experiment of America. And what did I hear today? Presidential historian Michael Beschloss was on television this morning, and he was talking about the strides that we've made in fighting COVID. And how, many people just don't want to, they refuse now to take the vaccine for a myriad of reasons. And we fell short of the president's goal of 70% inoculation by July 4th. We're at 67%. And the danger of that with the new variant, the Delta variant that's coming along. But Michael Beschloss pointed out that throughout history, even though we've had very divided countries, we've had a very divided country really since the beginning. The people who wanted to stay with England, those who wanted independence. Neighbor was fighting neighbor. In tracing my own family history back to that time period, I have ancestors who were loyalists to the crown and ancestors who were revolutionaries. So we've had this division all the way along. Then, of course, the Civil War. Well, the divisions continued, sometimes around race and sometimes around religion. But often the divisions were there. And he pointed out that after we have an unpopular conflict or something unpopular happens, we don't want to talk about it. We don't deal with it well. He was explaining that that's why we had the Roaring *20s, because we had gotten through World War I and the Spanish influenza epidemic, and that nobody wanted to talk about it. We just wanted to dive into something diversionary, and so we had the Roaring *20s. He likened it to the period following Korea and the Vietnam War. Veterans, some of you listening maybe, came home and nobody wanted to talk about it. It's like it's unpleasant. We don't want to talk about it. And so now all this that's happening, that happened on January 6th at the Capitol, and things that are happening with COVID, folks don't want to talk about it. White supremacy, we don't want to talk about it. Don't talk about it. Don't talk about it. And that's his concern for our moving forward as a nation, is that we won't talk about some of these things. That really rang true to me. I don't know if it does for you, but I also have this saying that was on my friend's T-shirt, and I'm going to share it with you now because it's really all about tying our belief system in with what's going on in the country. Oh, well, and in the world. I started watching, it was a few weeks old, but I started watching the Frontline on PBS, and it was about far-right Nazism and extremism in Germany. That was a scary thing. If you haven't seen that, you should, look it up and go look at that. Anyway, though, here's what this says. And so just think about this for a minute. And in honor of July 4th, maybe apply it to yourself and your family and your extended community. Love thy neighbor, thy immigrant neighbor, thy black neighbor, thy atheist neighbor, thy Muslim neighbor, thy depressed neighbor, thy conservative neighbor, thy LGBTQIA neighbor, thy disabled neighbor, thy indigenous neighbor, thy Jewish neighbor, thy progressive neighbor, thy incarcerated neighbor, thy homeless neighbor, thy Latinx neighbor, thy addicted neighbor, thy millennial neighbor, thy fill in the blank neighbor. Love thy neighbor. Jesus, our holy writings, they don't qualify. They don't say love thy neighbor if fill in the blank. It's love thy neighbor as thyself. Sometimes it means loving ourselves as much as we can love our neighbors. Some people find loving self harder than loving neighbor. But this flag, E Pluribus Unum, from many, one. We're all in this together. We are all in this grand experiment together. And if we can become a more perfect union, we get closer to the KOG on earth, the kingdom of God. I hope you have had a safe holiday. If you're watching this on Monday, I hope today's a good holiday extension for you. And even if it hasn't been a holiday, it's a time of remembrance for us to anchor ourselves in the fact that people throughout the last 200 plus years have laid their lives on the line and often given them up for this ideal that from many become one. We are all neighbors. Okay, everybody, I hope you have a great day. We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me for this prayerful pause with a pastor. I'm Pastor Deb Swift of South Presbyterian Church in Rochester, New York, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, God bless, take care, and bye for now.